I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we are the co-hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast where we walk listeners through the ins, outs, and retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
We are also the co-hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men,
which you're watching right now,
where we talk about the X-books that came out that week, and this time it's the week of October 1st, 2014.
And this week we actually only have 3 new X-books for the first time in a very long time.
Thanks, Marvel, for making our lives a little bit easier. So, what do we have first?
Well, first up we have Death of Wolverine number 3. This is 3/4 of the way into a series that will presumably end with the actual death of Wolverine. This is the Kitty Pryde issue. This is a series that's been strong so far. I don't think this issue is as good as the 2 that came before it, but I think it's still really solid. This one takes place in Japan, and it reintroduces an old Wolverine villain, Ogun.
Yeah, this series has felt kind of like a Wolverine's greatest hit sort of thing, which I personally really dig. I feel like if you're going to tell the last Wolverine story ever, you kind of have to revisit all the different Wolverines, you know. Criminal Wolverine, fighty Wolverine, samurai Wolverine. This one's doing it.
You know, maybe that it's because we just read the Claremont Miller Wolverine series, but this one isn't doing it quite as much for me. The greatest hit, I get the point of the greatest hits reel, but I think it could have been done a little bit more organically. That said, it's still a solid book. The art's still lovely, and again, the cool bonus features and behind the scenes stuff are still a lot of fun.
Next up, we have Adjectiveless X-Men number 20. This is written by Mark Guggenheim, with art by Harvey Talabau and Dexter Soy. This, as you may recall, is the all-female X-book. They're still off in space dealing with some Shi'ar stuff and some alien stuff, and it still feels a little generic, honestly.
Can I also point out the irony of the all-female X-book having absolutely no women on the creative team?
There's some definite irony there, it's true.
Yeah, choices, Marvel.
This one, I mean, I love the premise. I love the characters that are in it, and I love the whole going back to nostalgia. I mean, we have a lot of Deathbird stuff, we have a lot of Shi'ar stuff. They even mention good old Vulcan, everyone's favorite bad idea.
Yeah, that's not really a plus in my book.
It's true. One thing I will give this book, the colors are freaking sweet. That's actually one of the things I really liked about the Cyclops series early on, was the Alien Worlds colors. This book does it too. More space stuff, more neat colors.
Yeah, but we mentioned last week that Marvel is really killing it in terms of colors right now, and that's continuing to be the case. That's continuing to be, I think, one of the strongest visual threads through their entire line.
Yeah, but really this book feels, to be honest, kind of inessential. I don't think this is going to be one for the books. I think it's just, well, I'm seeing some characters I like do some stuff still.
I'm having the same problem with this book that I've had previously with it, which is that the premise and the characters should be catnip to me, and they're not. You could literally drop in any other set of characters in this story, and I would not notice the difference because they are that undercharacterized. And I'm getting bored by cool space fights. My threshold for boredom for cool space fights is really high.
We'll see if this one gets better. I don't know.
Maybe. We hope so. There's a new creative team coming on soon, right?
Yeah, this is Guggenheim's just doing one arc, so we'll see who comes up next.
Okay, finally this week we've got Uncanny Avengers, written by Rick Remender, drawn by Daniel Acuna, in which continues the Red Skull's rise to the inevitable event crossover Axis. And, you know, there's a lot that's good about this book. As we mentioned last time, Remender writes Magneto very well. This is one of the first books I've read recently that's the Scarlet Witch has had a really good distinct voice in, which I really like. I am having a hell of a time with the Red Skull as a villain.
But he's a Nazi skeleton man. Nazi skeleton man. That's the best villain concept ever.
I love that you're saying this in a Lobster Johnson t-shirt.
Hey, you know.
which does that well. But the thing is, when you've got a Nazi skeleton guy as your main villain, I feel like you really risk sliding into camp, and the things that writers do to overcompensate for that kind of kill the book for me. I might feel differently if I'd read a ton of Captain America, which I haven't. My main angle coming into this is X-books, but just having a lot of trouble with Red Skull here.
Well, talking about the grimdark thing, so that's something I've been thinking about with this book. Because it's Uncanny Avengers, right? So it's the Avengers X-Men crossover title, where it's that way all the time.
Sure.
I would think a lot of character drama, a lot of high adventure, like with big cosmic stakes, and we've actually seen a very dark book. That makes some sense, given that Rick Remender previously wrote Uncanny X-Force, which was super dark.
But X-Force is a fundamentally dark book. I mean, that was the murder team. This is not the murder team. This is the PR team.
True. So, I don't know, it's a strange book. I find myself enjoying it, but it's not what I would expect and probably not what I would do if I was given that concept.
So those are the X books we've got this week, and I gotta say, none of them is really jumping out at me for pick of the week. What would your call be?
Well, my call for pick of the week would actually be Thor #1. It's so freaking good.
Yeah, okay, I will buy that. Thor #1, totally pick of the week.
Yeah, so this is written by Jason Aaron, who you may remember from the first volume of Wolverine and the X-Men.
And it's drawn by Russell Dodderman, whose praises you may remember us singing from the early part of his run on Cyclops.
Yeah, so admission time. So obviously I'm a big X-Men fan. I'm also a really big Thor fan. He's kind of my other Marvel baby.
This truth.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with what's been going on in the world of Thor, which is to say Asgard, the comic Thor God of Thunder just ended after about 25 issues, also written by Jason Aaron, and now the series is relaunching as just Thor, same writer, new artist, and it's really great. All sorts of stuff happens. There are like sharks fighting frost giants, and Malekith, the dark elf, killing a lot of people, and like Odin and Freya yelling at each other about who's going to rule Asgard.
Yeah, this is all the Asgard books have been doing really interesting gender politics stuff. This is a book specifically in which Thor, the god, the son of Odin, is no longer worthy to lift the hammer. And I want to point out some of the most interesting Thor stories have historically come out of that concept. That's what brought us Beta Ray Bill. And that's what propels this book in what looks like it's going to be a really interesting direction.
Yeah, so we still have Thor, Odin's son, the blonde-haired dude, as a major character of the book, but at the end of the issue, we have a new mystery figure lifting up the hammer, saying there must always be a Thor, and then cut to, this female Thor, who's been actually a big PR thing for Marvel. She was announced on The View, weirdly enough.
Yeah, the dude bros are furious.
They really are.
It's really funny.
But I'm really excited to see where this book goes. I mean, I always like seeing more diversity in comics, and I also just always like seeing what happens when the status quo is just shattered, even if it's only for a little while, in one of the big Marvel titles. So this book right here, if you've ever been curious about Thor, great jumping on point, highly recommended. So Rachel, that's our pick of the week. What's our panel of the week?
Our panel of the week is from Death of Wolverine #3. As you know, if you've been watching these and listening to our podcast, we really like quiet moments that have a lot of story in them. And there's a great one in this book. It's Kitty Pryde and Wolverine just sitting very quietly by the side of a lake. And the wind is blowing in the background. And it's a beautiful panel that's very still, but also has a really profound sense of unease. And that's a hard combination to hit.
And it's also a great metaphor for what's going on in this book, and in a way in Wolverine's entire life since he met up with the X-Men. He's just really seeking that peace, that tranquility, that certainty, but there's always the chaos behind. There's always that sense that things are not going to last. And it's just a beautiful microcosm and a beautiful piece of art and staging.
And that wraps it up for this week. Next week, we will actually not be doing video reviews because we are both going to be at New York Comic Con. And we are not going to have a chance to record these. So we're just going to fold them into the next week's. Miles is going to be working all show. I'm going to be wandering the floor. If you see me, I will be carrying a handful of the fancy foil variant Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men stickers, and I will give them to you if you ask for them while I still have them.
In the meantime, please check out our podcast, which is sort of the big thing we do, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. You can find that at rachelandmiles.com, on iTunes, and on Stitcher. New episodes go up on Sundays, and this time, as we alluded to in the Death of Wolverine review, we're doing the Wolverine miniseries by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller. Freaking sweet. Ninjas get cut up like so much. It's amazing. Check it out.
Very, very sincere thanks to our Patreon supporters who make this series and a lot of our blog content possible. We couldn't do it without you. If you're enjoying these reviews, please check out the podcast, rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher, and consider supporting our Patreon. Thank you for watching.
We'll see you in New York. I think I can see the future in your sunglasses reflection.